This happened several years ago, when I was still in high school. It was during summer vacation, in the middle of July. My parents were celebrating their 20th anniversary, so they left me alone in the house for a week while they went on a retreat to some secluded place hours away. I was an only child, so I was used to house sitting. It wasn't like I was worried about it, though. I knew not to answer the door for strangers, and we had plenty of food. Plus, my parents had a Ring doorbell, which meant we had a camera at the front of the house just in case. I was actually kind of annoyed at the presence of that thing because it meant my parents could easily find out if I brought anybody over without permission. Unfortunately, that meant no parties. But honestly, after the 4th of July weekend, I was done with partying for a while. I looked forward to kicking back, relaxing, and doing nothing for a whole week. The first 3 days at the house were uneventful. All I did was eat, sleep, watch TV, and play video games with my friends online. However, the nights got weird. I had a lot of trouble sleeping. I would toss and turn until sunrise before I finally slept. But whenever it was dark, I was squirming with anxiety. I kept hearing things, like tapping or knocking sounds. I couldn't tell where they were coming from, but I was too freaked out to find out, and not dumb enough to get out of the bed in the middle of the night to go looking for trouble. I tried to ignore it by wearing headphones or playing the TV. Of course, by the 3rd night in a row of it happening, I was starting to get annoyed. On the 4th night, though, this inconvenience morphed into something much worse. I was in the living room watching TV, and the whole day that led up to this moment, nothing made it seem like anything unusual was about to happen. But then, at 1 o'clock in the morning, the Ring camera bell rang. A chill went through me. I was already on edge from what was going on the previous nights, but now there was really somebody at the door. I immediately muted the TV and sat almost completely frozen except for my own pounding heartbeat. I swore to myself that I had to be hearing things, but then it rang again. Panicking, I jumped up and turned off the lights in the TV, but right away I realized the mistake I made. Turning everything off and trying to hide in the silent darkness was no use. Whoever was out there would have definitely heard the TV go silent and clearly see the lights go off, making it obvious that I was inside. I kept thinking over and over again like a crazy person. Why is there someone at my door at 1 a.m.? Who rings the doorbell at 1 a.m.? That's when I finally thought to check the Ring camera through my phone. And what I saw was the most bone-chilling thing I've ever witnessed. There was a psycho at my door dressed as Ronald McDonald the Clown. He was looking straight into the camera. The sight of it alone petrified me. I didn't know whether I should answer him through the doorbell or just call the cops right then and there. But all I ended up doing was watching as he rang the bell again and again and again. He just kept smiling while tilting his head to the side, waving creepily. I couldn't take being on the same level as him anymore, so I bolted upstairs to my bedroom and locked the door. I sat there in the dark, watching him on my phone and hoping to God that he would just leave. But he didn't. He did the opposite. He started talking to me.
I know you're in there. I can hear you. I saw you. I can even almost smell you. You're in there somewhere. And you're all alone, aren't you? Just kidding. I know you are.
The sound of his voice petrified me. I had no idea who he was or what he wanted with me. I was scared out of my mind.
I'm sorry, are you hard of hearing? I said open the door, dipshit!
I was so afraid that I started to cry. I crawled onto the floor of my closet and hid there as the clown continued to torment me. That's when he took his hands out from behind his back and flashed a huge machete in front of the camera.
I know you can hear me, you spoiled little brat. Just open the door and I'll give you a free Big Mac. What do you say, kid? Just open the door, or I'll have to open it myself!
I knew by then that this man was completely psychotic. Suddenly, he raised the machete into the air and pounded it against the door. I heard that awful thud ring out through the entire house, but it wasn't just one. Once he got started, it was like he really couldn't stop himself. I could see the splinters flying off the door onto his face. He was making his way through, and it wouldn't be long. I cursed myself for not calling the cops earlier, as I knew the clown would already be inside. I then forced myself to go to my window and open it up while screaming for help at the top of my lungs, saying,
Help! Somebody! Someone's breaking into my house! Help!
I screamed until I was completely out of breath. Then I checked my phone to see if the clown was still at the door, but he wasn't. There was just a pile of wood chips left in the foyer. Another chill went through me as I realized he could have left, or he could have made his way in. I hid in the closet again and called my parents to tell them what was happening. They started making their way home and notified the police immediately. They told me not to make a sound until the police arrived. All I could do was spend the last several minutes in an absolute hell, just waiting in isolation and total fear. The cops eventually came before long and did their investigation, only to find out that my attacker had fled as soon as I started screaming. The worst part of it was when we checked the Ring doorbell footage from the previous 3 days. We saw that he was there every single night, taunting with the machete, just smiling and waving like a psycho. But what makes this even more disturbing was how I now knew he was the one making the sounds at night. I just don't understand why he did it, and unfortunately, he's never been found. This story was inspired by a disturbing Ring camera video of a man wearing a clown mask while menacingly tormenting someone's home. What makes the footage more unsettling was how the clown had a machete on hand and would tap the owner's camera with it during the middle of the night. The clown has since been at large and unidentified.
This was not even a month ago. I used to be on Tinder all the time for hookups and stuff, but now I don't really do that anymore. It was pretty obvious that most of the guys I matched with were just looking to get inside my pants, but I held out for a little while and eventually matched with a guy who we'll call Rob. Rob was actually promising in the beginning, someone who was both good looking and seemed like a genuinely good person. We texted on the app for a little while but got each other's phone number to make it feel less like a hookup. Initially, Rob seemed like he was on board with everything I wanted. After a few days of texting, he seemed like an alright guy. The only thing I found weird about him at the time was how many selfies of me he asked for. I didn't mind it though, because he seemed happy with what I sent him without trying to convince me to be any more revealing. Of course, I was still hesitant to go on the first date with him, knowing it was from Tinder, but I made sure it was as obvious as possible that I was gonna be a little harder to get than a one-night stand. I told him I wanted to go out to dinner at a nice restaurant and probably wait until at least the third date until we went home together. He said that he was down for that and that he would take care of everything. On the night of the date, everything about Rob seemed perfect and what some would say, too good to be true. He was gentlemanly and respectful, and I had no worries at all about paying for anything the entire night. But as the night progressed, things started to become bizarre. I remember seeing Rob oddly taking an unusual amount of pictures of me. At first, I thought he was just taking it for memories, but then he started becoming excessive with it, like he was literally taking a photo shoot of me. I then kindly asked him to put his phone away and that I didn't want my picture being taken anymore. And that's when I could tell he was completely losing his composure. He suddenly became more rude and began to show his true colors when he began to boss the waitress around. I noticed he wasn't even able to keep steady eye contact with me anymore. He then began to change the subject of the conversation to stuff like kinks and what I enjoyed in the bedroom. I kept telling him I wasn't interested in talking about that yet, but I noticed there was a distinct change in his behavior when he didn't get his way.
So, what did you want to do after the date?
He said.
I guess I'll just head home.
I replied.
Are you sure? I mean, don't you want to, head back to my place?
What? No, absolutely not.
No. I meant head back to my place for dessert. The food here is a little underwhelming.
Okay, what dessert do you have?
I can make vanilla lava cake or a mean banana split topped with coconut pudding or just come over to my place, damn it. I thought this was the point of Tinder.
Despite how weird he was becoming, I stuck around long enough to milk his wallet for all it was worth. The longer things went on though, the more sure I was that there wouldn't be a second date. Rob, on the other hand, got the wrong idea. He thought just because I was spending his money that he was going to get what he wanted. But little did he know that if he had actually actually been respectful to me the entire time, and not just in the beginning. I might have went home with him. As we left the restaurant, he kept trying to convince me to go home with him, but I was adamant about making him wait. In reality, I really didn't want to see him again, but I let him think that he had another chance. I then ran as far as I could away from him until it was safe enough to call an Uber. I eventually made it home, locked all my doors with the intention of not speaking to him again. Later in the night, just as I was headed for bed, I remember hearing notifications from my phone. It was Rob. He kept texting me even more bizarre messages than before. Now he was begging me for selfies under the context of missing me super badly and needing some of me to hold him over until the next time. I asked him why he couldn't just look at the dozen other selfies I already sent him, and he replied back saying, needed more, which made it pretty clear what he was really asking for. I asked him to give me some space and to respect my boundaries, which set him off on a self-pitying rant about how I was obligated to expose myself to him just because he took me out on a date. At that point, I got fed up and told him to leave me alone or I was going to block him. Instead of listening to me, he called me, so I immediately declined the call and blocked his number, then put my phone on silent and tried to sleep it off. I knew by then that Rob wasn't the good guy I thought he was, and that he was actually just a manipulative man-child at best, or a total psycho at worst. I thought he might get the hint and buzz off after I ghosted him, but he didn't. In the morning, he showed me who he really was. The first thing I saw on my phone was a message from him on Tinder that literally made me nauseous. It was the picture of a homemade doll he made of me. It was the kind of doll crudely put together with a pillow and some towels that were supposed to look like the shape of a woman's body, complete with my Tinder profile picture as the face and silicone lady parts at the bottom. And the icing on the cake was the caption that said,
I spent the night with this version of you. That'll have to do until I can get the real thing.
This story was inspired by a true story regarding a woman who matched on Tinder with a male. The pair had allegedly been texting back and forth, in which the woman exchanged a selfie photo of her face, which can be seen here. But what makes the interaction all the more disturbing was how in the midst of their interaction, the man texted a photo back of a doll made of the woman using an abundance of pillows, paper plates, other various items, and of course, her selfie, which can be seen below.